I'm presenting on revolution, and I'm breaking down what it is, why it's important for anyone who wants to leave the world better than they found it, and the type of work we need to do to get there. So, first off, what exactly is this revolution that we Marxists and many folks on the broader left never shut the fuck up about? The short answer is that revolution, as we Marxists call for it, is the material transformation of our current global capitalist society, dictated by a ruling minority, to a to a society dictated by the global majority of the working class. Imagine a world where every human on the planet is guaranteed a home, healthy food, clean water, healthcare, transportation, and a voice and a vote to help democratically run their workspaces and communities. We have more food and more housing than we do people, and we have the productive capabilities to start transitioning today to a real life functioning society we grew up being told is utopian. So why hasn't been priority number one for modern society? As a worker, someone who makes their living by selling their bodies to labor for an employer, we have no say in our job. We're expected to arrive on time, to comply with the demands of our immediate supervisors, who in turn must enforce the interests of those who own the company, or expect to be penalized or fired if we're insubordinate or if our work doesn't meet the boss's demands. We don't have a say in how much we make, how we run our workspaces, or what we're producing or distributing. Those decisions are made and enforced by a top-down bureaucratic corporate chain of command, with us at the very bottom. At best, maybe some of our supervisors might use their managerial position to enforce as little exploitation and oppression as possible, which can only go so far if their hands are tied to the interest of the owners, if they too don't want to risk unemployment. Under capitalism, businesses and private property don't exist to provide goods and services. Restaurants don't exist to serve food. Your favorite streaming service doesn't exist as a hub for entertainment. Housing doesn't exist for people to live in. Everything exists to produce profit for the benefit of the owners, which may include providing goods and services to those who have the money to purchase them at the prices they dictate, and also working to ensure that those who can't pay them do not get their hands on their commodities and are severely punished should we have the nerve to steal, aka appropriate, goods from their ownership. It's more profitable to throw unsold food, clothing, water, and anything produced into a landfill, never to be used. People are unhoused, malnourished, in unsafe living situations, and in general just fucking suffer because under capitalism, decisions are made by a ruling minority based on what's profitable rather than what meets the human and environmental needs of our communities. And I reckon that's pretty fucked. It's these systems of unpopular, undemocratic decision making by capitalists and of the feudal lords and other previous ruling classes that enables the need for a state, a system of tools to enforce the interests of a ruling minority on the rest of the human population. We grow up being taught and assured that the state is a neutral entity and can be used as a vehicle for positive societal change for the benefit of the workers and oppressed. The reformist left insists that all we have to do to liberate ourselves is to elect a socialist majority into the legislative wings of our capitalist nation states. And that's if they're bourgeois democracies. Some of them still aren't, who can go on to legislate capitalism out of existence. Yet those who wish to rule must control both political and economic power. Even if a socialist majority managed to pass popular reforms, it doesn't guarantee that they'll be enforced. If a law that gave us free nationalized housing in the US passed tomorrow, landlords could use their economic power to bribe local governments to continue enforcing their for-profit housing. They could shut down power and utilities to drive the tenants out, and in some cases in the past, burning down their housing units. And also they could do things like buying themselves screen time in bourgeois media to help manufacture consent for continuing the shitty practice that is landlordism and ensure anyone in the country with internet access is exposed to those views. Sorry, reading my notes here. Okay. Capitalist democracies often have mechanisms that ensure socialists can enact a revolutionary program in Congress. Here in the US, the Supreme Court, a governing body of 9 unelected justices, have revealed its capacity to unconstitutionally dictate policy through overturning Roe versus Wade and spearheading a horrific attacks on abortion and the rights of LGBTQ plus people in across the U.S. More recently, the Supreme Court used this power to declare immunity for U.S. presidents, essentially confirming that they have the power of a king, and also declare it legal for cities to arrest unhoused people if spotted sleeping in public. On paper, reformism shares a similar goal of achieving a socialist society, often seemingly expressed in vague terms by them. In praxis, its number one priority is getting candidates elected into office rather than bettering the conditions for the workers and marginalized folks they claim to represent. Historically, whenever mass workers' movement have militantly organized and called for alternatives to life under capitalism, reformist electeds have always sided with their bourgeois governments. From European social democrats electing to send workers to die for imperialism against their will in the trenches of World War I, to Chilean reformists repeatedly betraying the struggling workers on the brink of a revolution until the infamous US-backed coup that brought in the infamous regime of Pinochet, Augusto Pinochet. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. To the present, the DSA's obsessive devotion to the imperialist Democratic Party, even as they oversee the Zionist state's lifeline to committing Palestinian genocide. These are just countless examples over the past century, at least 100 years, of reformists turning their backs on us. If we can't vote out the ruling class and their state, then how does revolution get us from point A, the cesspool of fear, exhaustion, stress, and for too many folks, murder and malnourishment, and that intense grief from their loved ones, and their painful struggles to move on through a society of seemingly infinite drudgery? How does a revolution get us from that to our endgame, a classless, moneyless, stateless society, aka communism? A society where there is no ruling minority to occupy our workspaces, nor our distribution of goods we produce in them. By themselves, the working masses are capable of spontaneously organizing extraordinary organs of resistance. Without pro-capitalist or revolutionary leadership, workers worldwide have organized workers, autonomous militant strike committees, workers' councils, mass assemblies, and other organs of resistance and self-government. When the first workers' councils arose in Russia during the attempted 1905 revolution, the Revolutionary Bolshevik Party initially turned their heads away. Prior to this, they didn't believe the working class by themselves could organize militantly against their bosses. It was when they finally did intervene in the Soviets, with honoring their democratic process to spread revolutionary perspectives as a form of intervention, rather than forcibly seizing control. It was that they were able to expand them into a proletarian sword that dealt the killing blow to Russian capital's Tsarist regime and its failed attempt at a provisional government. It was this Bolshevik party that persisted in doing the work of organizing independent revolutionary leadership that helped lead the Russian working class towards ushering the second attempt of building a workers' democracy next to the legacy of the French communards of the Paris Commune. For a workers' revolution to succeed, spontaneous upticks of mass consciousness and resistance and building a revolutionary party go hand in hand. Building a revolutionary party from the ground up is an art. It's not always an enjoyable medium, but if we want to win a world where everyone who wants to can make art of their on their own terms, it's most essential. Writing a revolutionary party's origin story requires the organization of Marxist study circles, often starting with numbers in the single digits, numbers of people in the single digit. Humans are not numbers. A revolutionary party needs to have a clearly defined political program to organize around, and it's in this beginning phase where that process begins. And can that sorry, where members study, discuss, and debate towards establishing said political points of unity. Sorry, I'm really bad at reading my own notes, and I'm getting insecure about it. To begin organizing into local propaganda groups, the next stage of party building. Propaganda groups, much like the Denver Communists and our other founding locals of Firebrand, are a stage of party building defined by the establishment of a revolutionary political program and beginning their organizing often in a single city or region on the semi-small scale. In this stage and in our present work, our main overall task is to win over people, often in the ones in small numbers, to revolutionary socialist politics on the basis of ideas. In practice, we do this here in the DC via our open meetings, establishing ourselves at on the ground actions and spreading our political perspectives to those who are willing to listen at these actions. Here in the 21st century, we also have maintain a strong social media presence where we share our propaganda and reflections and political perspectives from the actions where we do our on the ground organizing. The stage is slow and it's often filled with uncertainty and anticlimactic work. To be a steadfast revolutionary who is part of a propaganda group is to be okay with the work resembling a white collar office job or studying in school. It's with our membership's persistence and patience with this work that will allow us to grow our membership into the hundreds and then the thousands of committed and trained members needed to start reorganizing into a revolutionary party. As Vladimir Lenin stated, there are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen. At any point, working class consciousness can spontaneously spike. There's honestly nothing saying that tomorrow could be the spark of the next militant uprising. You just never know when it's going to happen next. This is also why, albeit it's not completely random either, but this is also why our work now is most essential. Even if we don't have a party or the numbers to lead the workers to revolutionary victory, such situations create riper conditions to win more workers and fighters to the revolutionary project and grow closer towards building a party. So say we actually live to see that revolutionary victory, to start seeing the global working class overthrow their bourgeois nation states. First off, that'd be extremely fucking dope. Secondly, capital's out of the throne. So where do we go from there? Where would we go from there? 4 words: dictatorship of the proletariat. If communism is a classless, stateless, moneyless society, then doesn't embracing that term just prove we're a bunch of hypocrites who clearly don't know what the shit we're doing? No, no, we're not. The present world order of capitalism can't vanish overnight. Unless Doctor Strange or another beefed up magic user exists in the real world, we're left with the limits of material reality, and a transition period between capitalism and communism is required. Much like capitalists are the ruling class of our time, the term dictatorship of the proletariat simply means the reflection of a society where the roles are reversed. And it is the working class that is the global majority, that is the ruling class, and its former minority of capitalist masters now subject to their interests of this global majority. A lot of the ruling class will be livid and scathing to have been forcibly removed from power by their former subjects, and to have their hoards of wealth confiscated and returned to their workers and the planet we all share. Certainly, the Russian ruling class was pissed, so pissed that with the help of its British, American, and other imperialist military friends, they raged against the Bolshevik government. during 197 from 1917 to 1922 and left the fresh worker state in ruin, even as even as they suffered a military defeat. Hence enter Stalin, which unfortunately is another story. Workers without their own state risk being forced back into the hell of capitalist production rather quickly. We most likely might need our own army, police slash security forces, prisons, and courts to protect ourselves from and our communities, and and our transition to communism from vengeful violent attacks aimed to restore capitalist rule, and just anyone who has a reason that they would want to hurt or murder innocent people. Rather than top down decision making for a ruling minority, a workers' government must be in service of its global majority. And this is why direct democracy from the bottom up isn't just a political ideal, but the material necessity for a government ran in service of a majority. Starting in the workplace, rather than managers and executives calling the shots of your job from a distance, you and your coworkers will be free to make those decisions yourselves via hosting democratic discussions about workplace issues and initiatives, and ensuring everyone who wants to participate in the vote has equitable access to their voice and their vote before deciding together how to solve said issues. On the city, regional, and perhaps larger levels, councils of representatives elected from the workplace and levels below it can meet to discuss the issues and initiatives gathered and represented on behalf of their constituents. If a representative in these councils decides to act against the wishes of their electorate, it is their right to remove them from their seat and decide democratically what to do next. As the need for state organs of defense against continued oppression and the types of exploitation that diminish, so too can the labor of maintaining this worker state can be phased out. This is what we mean by the worker state withering away. And yeah, unfortunately, that's all I've got for y'all tonight. But yeah, I think, but yeah, this is how we can actually build a beautiful world where we're free to work and live and love and just decide our own fucking destiny and not have that be a word, just a fucking literary phrase. So yeah, that's all I got. Love and solidarity.